I am streaming, and I couldn't possibly be more thrilled about that than I am. And because I'm streaming, but because no one knows that I'm streaming, it's going to take a half a second for people to realize that I'm streaming. However, I am streaming. Okay, so what took place yesterday? There were a couple of interesting lessons learned yesterday. Let us recap what's going on here. Probably should recap it from the camera point of view. So let's turn off the sketches, and I guess we could leave the background on and play this around. You can see Ninja number 1 climbs into the room and does this barrel roll move, and the actual rest of the scene looks something like this. Does his barrel roll move, there comes Ninja number 2, he knocks the table, and there goes the vase, and Ninja number 1 rushes to catch the vase. Okay, so what was kind of interesting, and by the way, this morning I had to go through I had to go through my drawings of Ninja number 1 and add this band because I had forgotten that that was part of his costume. So that's a little glitch on my part, but no big deal. The reason the band on the right arm is not there, gosh, I was going to say is it's because he's not in the frame yet, but it actually appears to be more because I haven't drawn it yet. Okay, so what I'm going to do is probably should turn on the onion skins, I think. Yeah, so I can see the previous keyframe, and now I need to see. This is kind of weird. Yeah, I've got 1, 2, 3. Let me see here. Yeah, I've just got a few frames here where the band is still missing, so I want to have the. So the cool thing is, what I learned yesterday was that I had a live stream that lasted about, I don't know, hour and a half. And during the live stream, I was just doing my usual thing and blabbing on about this and that. And frankly, there was a fair amount of ranting going on. I was complaining about this and complaining about that. Basically software problems, which is what I normally complain about. And I went back and watched a little bit of it because I thought, man, this must be like so in there. So it was encouraging to learn that I'm not a complete raving lunatic. However, so then later in the day, I started doing some inking, okay, and just doing what I'm doing right now. But I really didn't say much. I just kind of was inking, and I got some good work done on this shot. And I went back and watched a little bit of that. I'm like, man, this is so boring. So my conclusion was that my YouTube videos are more entertaining when I blab like a lunatic. So I'm going to try not to blab like a complete lunatic, but I'm going to go ahead and feel free to wax philosophical about what the heck's going on in the animation, and perhaps from time to time what's going on in the world at large. Now that is dangerous ground on which to tread, because obviously that suggests that the taboo topics may come up from time to time, such as you know, politics, religion, that sort of thing. And I certainly would not deny that I have some opinions about politics and religion. So, not sure what I'm going to talk about today. I will say this: I have been watching My Hero Academia, The other day I posted a drawing that was done in Blender 2.8 grease pencil of All Might from My Hero Academia. And that video got more views in one day than most of these live streams get in a week. Now, to be fair, none of my videos get a lot of views. I just don't have, I'm just not that popular. And that's perfectly okay. I don't necessarily need to be all that popular. But it was instructive. It was instructive to see that this is kind of sort of maybe what more people are interested in. And so I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking maybe what I should be doing is balancing out the content like this, where it's sort of the idea is you're looking over the artist's shoulder, working on a real project kind of thing, versus the All Might drawing, which was really just an exercise, and perhaps to some people instructional in some way, you know, which is cool. I'm glad if I can either I guess I would say educate or inspire people. I mean, generally that's a good thing. And so here we are selecting these. It's probably going to be important for me to lock the other layers. I'm going to reselect that because I don't actually know if you select some strokes from a layer and then you lock the layer, do those strokes become unselected or do they stay selected? I don't even know. But that's okay. It doesn't much matter what I'm going to do. And by the way, we're on ones right now. This animation is on ones through this short little sequence, and therefore we have a lot of latitude because it's going to go by really, really fast. He's about to go into this barrel roll move. Well, I mean, I guess he just did, but then he comes up out of it. So we got 2 frames in which to settle into that final pose. So anyway, Blender 2.8. Let's talk about Blender 2.8. I like what I see so far. It is definitely going to be a learning curve. It's a little bit of a different way of working, and it's not very backward compatible in the sense that when I pulled up this very project in Blender 2.8, the grease pencil strokes don't even show up. So, and that's a little disappointing. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but one of the things that has always been kind of cool about Blender has been that it's both backward and forward compatible. So that means that not only could you load up, say, this project in the next version of Blender, but you could actually load up something from a later version of Blender into a previous version, and Blender would not choke on that. It would simply interpret the but like my favorite really old version is Blender 2.28, but man, it's pretty easy to blow that version up. Definitely, it was pretty crash prone. But 2.49 was very, very stable, and this version I'm using right now, which is 2.79, is super stable too. So I don't really, yeah, I do save my work pretty frequently, but I don't worry about Blender like exploding and causing me to lose tons of work. At least not this version. There have been versions where you would definitely want to be a little more careful. Okay, so now I went and forgot the band again. Can you believe I did that? So yeah, anyway, despite my previous somewhat cynical opinions about Blender 2.8, I'm enthused about it. I think it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be a good tool. Mainly the filling, you know, inking and filling, and maybe some of the effects. Although I guess the duplicate, or I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't remember what they call it. But it's kind of a duplicate or cloning. It's not a particle effect, but what it does, it creates a bunch of duplicated instances of your grease pencil object. Let's see. Boom, boom. Okay. Actually, that's not quite in the right spot. Look like that. I find a lot of times a good way to draw is what I just did, where you... Well, when it comes to creative work, I always say work from the known to the unknown. Start with what you know you're going to have in the project, or what the known parameters are, and then through a certain process of thought and or trial and error, you figure out what the unknown parts of it need to be. And that's kind of the way I do prefer to draw. So in my mind, I see certain lines that I know I want in there, like I'm doing right now. And then you start I have always been of the opinion that you can learn anything. Like some of you know that until I did this project, I've never animated before. Now I have wanted to animate. Going back to high school, it was something I was interested in, and I did a little bit of CGI because, like I said, I've used Blender for 20 years, and I've used it for special effects on some of the movies I've produced. But I've never actually done 2D animation like I'm doing here, ever, until I did this project. So, but I kind of knew in my head I could do it, so it was kind of like it was there, It's like you just know. You just need to give it some time and find out. But there are certain things that you wonder, okay, can I teach this to somebody? Is this a learnable skill, or is this something you sort of have to be born with? I think for the most part, most stuff is teachable or discoverable. I'm basically self-taught in almost everything I do, so I don't really think of things in terms of teaching or getting lessons or anything like that. Okay, I forgot the band. I think I need to turn my sketch off. Okay, it's there, but it's not there. So that's a problem. So what are some things that maybe I would wonder if they are particularly teachable skills? Coming up with a hook in a song is something that I have the ability to do, and I'm not sure if that's something that I can teach. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Per Almerd. Hey, thanks, man. You'd like to think you can teach. It's like the instinct. Somebody made a comment the other day when I was drawing this guy that the end of it looked almost like it was rotoscoped, and what he was referring to was this section right here. Right? Kind of the way he pushes up. At that point in time, that's all there was that movement there, and then that was before I had this barrel roll. Okay, so there's no rotoscoping going on. It's just sort of instinct. So is it possible to teach that? How do you teach someone to just feel how the weight of the body would go, in a situation like this? This is going to be kind of winky because I'm thinking that needs to fall behind like that. Okay, so now this has to stretch. I'm going to have this stretch around like that. basically I'm giving myself the excuse to avoid too much complication here. So that shows my egocentric nature, which is not a good thing, because my feeling is, well, I could figure it out, but I don't necessarily have confidence that everybody else could, and that's not really fair. Oh, this could be a mistake. I got to check something here. Okay, it's all still on the 0, but I really should be drawing in the front view, not the camera view. I'm going to get myself in a pickle if I'm not careful. Okay, so now because we don't have our sketch, I don't have the correct pose. Alright, so we got 2 more poses we got to get in there. 1. I'm just going to go ahead and put the keyframes in. Okay. This one is definitely a... well, it's going to go by quick. Let's put it that way. Okay, so those other layers are locked. So that means I can grab this stuff, link it, Control C, and I think I can get away with actually copying and pasting him in to these 2 frames. Okay. And I think I want to make a little modification to his expression here too. So let's do it this way. Let's go projected 2D. Yeah, I just want to make it a little bit more ominous. A little more ominous. Alright, here we go. Now we're back here. Okay. Select all. Okay. It appears that he has a missing ear. Okay, so what would his hair do there? It would go just like what my sketch sort of indicated. Alright, so now we're going to go boom, 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 boom. And let's go ahead and put in the wrap the way I really should have been doing it all along. Okay, so his clothing is going to be stretched here and scrunched here. Scrunch, 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 scrunch. So, interesting comparison with songwriting. Well, yeah, and I've been working for a living off and self-taught, never harm me. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I never had lessons in anything. I mean, I taught myself to play guitar, piano, drums, you know, songwriting, animation, CGI, making films. I read books. I did read books. How helpful were they? I don't know. You know, sales. I read books and then got on the phone, which most people are sort of terrified to do. But, man, I can't help it all. Maybe the process gets too internalized. We have to learn it all ourselves. Well, the thing is, what I'm finding, that's what's interesting about this project actually, is my partner Valerie's the writer, and I really made a decision that I don't, you know, when I've made films, I've been the buck stops here guy, very much so. And with this project, it's been a very specific priority that I'm not going to be the buck stops here guy. I don't want to be the buck stops here guy. My job is to realize her vision for this anime, and I'm on board with the vision. I mean, I think the story she's writing is phenomenal. The word I keep using is epic. It is epic. It's really huge, and so what I'm learning now at this point in my life is that sort of letting go and letting other people, trusting other people to do what they do. You know, I don't have to necessarily fix it for them or polish it up even. trust other people's creativity is basically what I'm learning at this stage of my existence. And I think the result is going to be better than what I could do myself, because I do definitely believe that when you have, here she is right now, here she is walking through the room. Wait, is she going to walk through the room? I don't know. This is the genius. Come and give us a kiss. That was lame.
I know.
But yeah, she's my best friend. She's my bestie, and we do have a good time. So yeah, but yeah, it's her story. She's done copious amounts of research about a lot of topics, socio-political topics. What would you say? There are topics that will be touched upon in this anime that get into metaphysics and spirituality, like a lot of anime, frankly. I mean, there's a lot of anime out there that have like demons and you know what I'm talking about, that kind of stuff. So that gets touched upon. A lot of interesting oncoming science, like related to eugenics, basically, for the most part. And I know I'm not drawing this in such a way that it really looks like a toe there, but I kind of decided I didn't care about that. So it's fun, and it's a blessing to be able to collaborate creatively with someone that you love. That's really been a cool thing. And of course, we definitely have our fights. But we always come out stronger, not weaker. Because we're sort of determined to be, for lack of a better term, emotionally healthy in our home. Yeah. Well, the thing about, what's the most important thing that a creative person needs, especially when they're very much in the learning process, which I am with animation. You need a safe zone. I mean, you need to have a way to, you have to have the freedom to fail. And actually, that's why I started live streaming. When I was doing, in filmmaking, I've kind of done the opposite. I've been more of a control freak. Let's see, I definitely made his ear too big right there. How do I explain this? Okay, let me explain it this way. If I'm a filmmaker, which I am, and I can do something that maybe most people can't do, okay, which is, and this is all true, by the way. I can write the screenplay, direct the movie, act in it sometimes, write the musical score, do the editing, do special effects and post-production. I can do it all, and I can do it for a minuscule budget. Okay? Quite literally a budget. Every movie I've made has had a budget, an actual cash out of my pocket of less than $10,000. So it's kind of the Roger Corman approach, right? So this might be one of those things that's kind of helpful to some people, is that if this movie right here, Healed by Grace, I'll tell you the story of how that came about, because that movie made about $1 million. It really was this simple, okay? Here's how it happened, because people that are creative and wanna, I need to transition back to the other screen, by the way. People that are making films, especially young people, have a lot of misconceptions about how the world works and how they're gonna get successful. Now, I can't say this is the only way, because there's reasons why, and maybe I don't know if I'll talk about it today, but maybe in another video I'll talk about it. There's some reasons why this strategy I'm about to describe isn't necessarily perfect because of the way the world is changing. So let me explain what I mean by that. Okay, I had made a film with a friend, and we just did it because we wanted to, you know. And I was like reading books on screenplays, and we had done some like corporate video work and stuff, but we really hadn't done the movie thing. But I've always been a creative person, and I figured, okay, let's just make a movie. So that movie was called The 18-Month Window. That's going back to, I think, 2008. Well, The 18-Month Window got picked up by a fledgling spiritual, like a Christian fledgling cable network. And that cable network, the guy that was the principal acquisitions guy, we just became friends, okay? And my sense was that this relationship might be important. You know, I mean, I liked this guy. It seems like we got, after 2 years, what I just said basically happened, which was they reached a point where they needed original content. They wanted more movies, and they wanted to be bootstrapping their own content. Okay? Kind of like what Netflix is doing now. And I was there at the right time. And they contracted with 2 filmmakers, supposed to be super cheap TV show episodes, really. But at the time, I'm like, okay, that's the only deal that's really on the table, and at least I can get paid to learn how to make films, and hopefully along the way I'll make a good one or 2, right? Okay, so that's what happened. So I made a couple movies. The first one was pretty awful, for sure. Well, I mean, you could argue they're all awful in their own ways. None of them are going to win any awards. But then what happened was, I thought it was important. I think what happened was, if you go to the that I found inspiring about his attitude, and basically his attitude was that he was really working to create a success for his benefactors. So in other words, the network that employed him. He wasn't concerned about making tons of money today. He was concerned about what's going to be the best thing to help the network succeed, because if they succeed, I succeed. That was his attitude. I thought, okay, that's a good attitude. So in 2011, I think it was, I went and met with a distributor. I just set up a meeting, said, look, I'm a guy that's produced a couple of these movies here, and what I want to do is I want to sit down and I just want to ask you, what is selling? What's selling? And this is for the faith-based marketplace. You know, this would be essentially Christian films, if you will. I wanted to know what was proving to be successful in their, for them as a distributor, what's selling. Because I figured if I can know what's selling, and by the way, I think I'm going to call this Ink Ninja 1, and I'm going to put Ninja 2 on a separate layer. Okay, so we'll call this Ink Ninja 2. So I go and meet with this guy, and I say to him, look, just give me the characteristics that are, you know, selling in a movie. And he did. He says, okay, well, our best-selling movies kind of have these characteristics. I'm not recording on my end, but you know what? I'll start right now. Okay, so now it's doing both. Now I'm streaming and recording, and going forward, I'll probably just see. I think the chat thing's cool, so that's why I like to do the. I don't know. This might be dangerous if I record. I guess we'll find out. You guys tell me in the comments. Right now, I'm recording and streaming. is the cutting out getting worse, or is it getting better, or is it the same? If it's basically, okay, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go to OBS 64's details, okay? I'm going to see if this helps. I don't know if it'll help, but I'm going to take it off all processors and put it on the last 4 processors, okay? And then I'm going to take Firefox. This is probably, as much as anything, going to be the offender. And I'm going to put Firefox on the first 4 processors. Blender's usually not problematic, but I'll put Blender on the middle 4. 5, 6, 7, I guess it'd be 4 through 7. Okay, so that gets them out of each other's way. I've found that's, if you're trying to multitask, about the same. So yeah, okay. Okay, so where are we? I guess since people, it seems like there's people coming around and making comments, so I'm going to go ahead and just run this once so everybody's on the same page kind of thing and eat that stuff up. And in the faith-based marketplace, and this is where knowing your market's important, in that marketplace, the entire retail marketplace is driven by soccer moms. So basically these women with a 13-year-old daughter would go into a Family Christian store or a Lifeway or sometimes regular bookstores, I suppose, and they would buy like a video for their kid. Okay, that was, hey Darren, that was what was driving the industry. So based on that information, I simply wrote a script that had all those characteristics in it. Basically half a dozen items. And by the way, let me ask you, let me divert and ask this. Do you guys know of some other software other than OBS that will do a better job? Because there's nothing about the specs of this machine that should keep it, or my internet. I mean, I've got 30 megabytes up and down, or megabits actually, but which is 1/8. Okay, but if there's some other, I mean, I've looked at doing the live streaming direct through YouTube, and it doesn't look like it's very flexible, but I haven't spent a lot of time grokking it out. So if somebody has a suggestion as to a better solution than OBS, I'm all ears. I don't care. So anyway, that's what I did. So I created a movie that had all the characteristics of a chick flick horse movie, and lo and behold, it was one of their best-selling. For the distributor, it was one of their best-selling titles that they've ever put out. Darren, I'm not sure. My internet connection, like I said, it's 30 megabits up and down. It's fiber optic. We don't have internet issues here. We don't have stuff like cutting out and losing connections, like hardly ever. And we do a lot of like watching various streams and, you know, whatever it is, YouTube, Netflix, you know, Kiss Anime. So yeah, I don't know what the culprit is here. Okay, so now I gotta actually put a stray dot here just so there's a keyframe. Excuse me. So it was interesting that the result was not necessarily predictable, because I think if the movie really sucked, it probably wouldn't have done so well. But you know, the movie was serviceably entertaining, and as a result, it, like I've said, it made about $1 million. Now that's at retail. So what's the bad news in terms of, you know, making your money with your anime or with your movie? The bad news is, yeah, the movie made $1 million at retail, but at wholesale, in other words, for the distributor, that comes out to more like, I'm going to say, around $600,000. Okay, that's bad news number one. Bad news number two is, I'm an idiot. You know what I just did? I need to flip this. Alright, so let's do it the easy way. Let's go scale x -1. Sx -1. Look at that. That was easy. We go here, Sx -1. So if you want to know how to flip stuff in Blender, grease pencil, that's how you do it right there. SX -1. Okay, so what does $600,000 at wholesale turn into? Well, for me, not much, because the entity that paid me to make the film, I accomplished exactly what I set out to accomplish vis-a-vis my Stephen J. Cannell attitude, which was, how can I make my benefactor successful? So I'm going to say they turned around. I should use Control D at this point. So they probably did about in the neighborhood of, oh gosh, somewhere between 200 and 300 grand. I don't know. So they gave me a portion of that just to be nice, basically, to keep me making movies for them. But so that's, you know, the point is that, let's say that you only walk away with 5% of the money that one could claim your movie made. Should we complain about that? I would argue not really, because honestly, if Thor Ragnarok makes $100 million, do you really think the writer and the director are walking away with more than 200 million? I don't think so. So you got to remember that there's a lot of these Hollywood movies, there's so much money that has to go into marketing and promoting them. So I guess the takeaway is that whatever you're going to do creatively, you kind of have to be responsible for your own business plan. In the case of what I did, the problem was that the whole market changed about between 3 and 5 years ago. The whole marketplace changed totally. Literally, the bottom dropped out. The major retailers, because that type of a business model of a retail chain is pretty passé. People are buying stuff online now. And so, unfortunately, the entire retail sector for quote-unquote family-friendly entertainment literally disappeared overnight. And so that made it tough. It made it so that the distributor had to let's see, I need to turn on the proportional editing again. So we had it's like we had a deal for the sequel, and because the bean counters were getting nervous, they had to welch out on the deal, kind of thing. I already had the script written, so it got a little negative, not in a bad way. We didn't have any legal problems or anything like that, but I had to face reality that the marketplace is no longer buying what I'm selling like they did before. So maybe it's time to change my plan a little bit. And as I've looked at changing my plan, I said, you know what? There's one thing that I have kind of wanted to do ever since I was in high school. And that is animation. So, oops, we don't want the O key on. Okay, now I'm going to reverse what I did before. I'm going to go SX -1. And I actually like that pose, so I think I'm just going to stick with that. Okay. That's working. Okay, so I don't remember what this guy's costume looked like. Maybe I've got it open here, I hope. Yep, okay, so he had the mask and then he had the headband. Okay, got it. So about the time... So I created the sequel to the movie that did well, just because why not, you know? There was some demand for it, for sure. I'm going to make his eyes really simple because he's so small on the screen. I don't know. And I'm drawing that slow so that it actually comes out looking like a circle. So that's not too bad. But basically, I'm tired of. I'm kind of tired of making movies. If the right project came along, I would probably make another one. But for the most part, I'm just really not interested in doing that anymore. It's not like it's so amazingly lucrative that, you know, just got to make a movie at all costs kind of thing, right? But if you're going to make a movie, my suggestion to somebody with no experience and no budget is go to somebody that's distributing movies like you want to make and just ask them, what's selling? What would I have to do to make a movie that you would definitely want to distribute? Now, you might not get the greatest distribution deal in the world, but the thing about movies is this. It's really simple. If the movie's good, distributors want it. If distributors don't want it, there's only one reason. It's because the movie sucks. And so you'll find out really fast if your movie is, you know, kind of sort of good enough or not. Now, there are distributors out there that are going to distribute a movie that's marginal just because, you know, who knows. So you got to be a little careful about who you hop in bed with, basically. And that's true with anything in business, I suppose. I think your anatomy is really good. I have advice to learn that stuff. Anatomy in motion, if you will. Okay. Sorry for the delay on answering your question. I can tell you what my influences were. I mean, I came from basically John Buscema, Frank Frazetta, that kind of stuff is what I was drawing. But what I've learned in animation, let me tell you this. I will create a video just about that, based on what I've learned about cartooning, anatomy, and how it informs animation. Okay? Because I think it's an important topic that I probably should give some time to. But I'll give you the really fast story right now, okay? And I'll do it like this. So I hope you guys let me save this. Let me hit escape, file, save. And I'll tell you I'll tell you just a few things that have been the most helpful for me. Okay? Here we go. Here's what it is. First of all, I'm gonna be a little scatterbrained here because I don't have a plan for this, but here's the deal. First of all, if you're gonna animate, start with sticks and balls. Okay? Start with sticks and balls. Use a triangle for the hand. You could use a triangle for a torso as well, and maybe use 2 triangles to represent this. And it's a good idea to know the basic workings of the anatomy. You know, like a woman would have the same size hips as shoulders, whereas a man would be a little narrower, but that probably goes without saying. But the point is, to animate it, start with sticks and balls. Okay, so now I'm just going to go to the next frame, and I'm going to make sure my onion skins are on. Yep. And then I'm going to go, okay, so this is going to be duplicated. Okay, now, principle number 1, sticks and balls, because the most important thing is motion. How's it going to move? Number 2, arcs. Okay, if I want his elbow to move up to here, then I don't need to worry about how to draw an arm yet. I don't care about how to draw an arm. I care about how it moves. So therefore, I know that there's an elbow here, and there's going to be an elbow there, and it has to move on an arc. Therefore, there's my new elbow. Now I know that this distance here was about that much, so let's say he's going to pull his arm up like this, then okay, that distance stays about the same, so there's the new wrist. But you say, well, it's going to be foreshortened. Okay, let's put the wrist there. Now we just need to bear in mind that the arm is foreshortened. We're not seeing, let's see, I got to get over here. You're not seeing this, you're seeing this. Fine, no problem. Okay? So this other arm, let's say it turned this way. You know, it's still on an arc, and it's also foreshortened. So you've got sticks and balls, and then you got your arc. Don't do motion without drawing the arc, because it will not be in the right place. Hey, Oscar. All right. So I'm only going to draw 3 keyframes. All right. In this one, I'm going to shift the torso. So I'm going to shift everything. Now, the way I'm doing it is stupid, because if I was smart, what I'd do is, in Blender, I would go like this. I would grab all of this, and I would click there. I would click at the belly button and hit the period so that any rotations take place on that arc. And then I'd go to this keyframe. I actually would not have put this keyframe in here. I'd go like, let's take that back out. I'd go here, and I'd just go like that. Okay, so that just makes it easier. And if you're only working with sticks and balls, you don't need bones, do you? No, I don't need bones. All I have to do, and let me turn off only render so you can see the cursor, okay? If I want to turn this arm, then I can just go like this. Just grab everything up to the elbow and turn it. Okay, I say, well, I want to turn this entire arm. Okay, grab everything up to the shoulder, click there, and move it. So there is some planning involved for sure, but basically it's kind of easy. And then you can very quickly just scan through here and see if it's working or not. Is it working? It's working. Well, what about in-betweens? Now I'm going to do an in-between the hard way. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to draw a dot and say, okay. I am Oscar. Yeah, Blender 2.8's looking interesting. We're going to keep an eye on it for sure. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. In this frame, I see that I've got a shoulder here and a shoulder here. All right? In this frame, I see that I've got an elbow here and an elbow here. Okay, I see that I've got a wrist here. So we'll call this, I'll just draw a line for that, and a wrist here. Okay, so first of all, we got to get the shoulder correct, because the shoulder influences how everything else moves. Okay. So we can ballpark this arc and say we're going to put it there, and this wrist goes from here to here. So let's say we want it to move quickly in the first part of the motion, so it's not going to be right in between. So there's that. Okay, so now we got that. We've got to get the shoulder from here to here, right? So therefore the shoulder is going to be there. So boom, boom, boom. Okay. This is pretty simple. We've got an arc here. There's your midpoint. We're sticking with midpoints at this point. All right. And we got a point there and there. And so we're going to say there's the center of it. We're not going to mess with the hips at this point. One nice thing in Blender, though, is that one nice thing in Blender, really nice thing, is what if you had let's say you got a whole second of animation, but they're all baked into these keyframes. So you're really bumming out because you realize there's one thing you need to change, because now you want to move his whole body. You want to move his whole body across the room, and you want to animate his legs separately. You're not worried about anchoring it to the floor. It's going to be a plane axis. Size it down just so it's not taking up, so you can see it. Oh, I can't go only render. Okay, and then take this level that you just drew and parent it to the empty. So now the empty carries everything around with it. So let's insert a location key. Let's go forward to here, and let's insert a location key, and let's have a little bump in the middle. All right, let's have in fact, let's really have fun with it. Let's go up a little bit, insert a location key. All right, but now we want some, not squash and stretch, but we want some like reaction stuff. So let's roll this back a little bit. Let's go ahead and really get crazy with it. We'll insert a rotation key, go back to here, rotate it back up again. Okay, sorry, we got a mistake here. I need to hit the comma so that we're rotating on the actual empty. Okay, a rotation key. Alright, and then we'll rotate it back this way. I'm really trying to do this fast here, folks. Okay. Insert it, and obviously you could have some reaction afterwards, like it could go like this. It could float like that. But now, let's see what happens. Okay, wow, that went by awful fast. So we better slow down our keyframe, or our frame rate, right? So I'm going to go back here and change my frame rate to custom, And we'll just do 24 divided by 6, I guess. Let's see what that does. Okay, yeah, that's a little better. So now we can actually digest what's happening. See? So now you have been able to preserve the animation and yet move it as well. Got it? See what I mean? So it's pretty easy. Okay, so now the question becomes to answer, I don't know how to say it, per Almerd. That's the idiot American's way to say it. Okay. So now the question, that's how you animate. Sticks and balls. Now the question becomes, thank you. I hope I do. We do want to grow the channel. I've been actually doing a little research on that. Okay. So now I'm going to grab the sketch color, the ink color, and for simplicity in this scene I'm going to make it black. Hello. Okay. Okay, so now you ask me about how to draw. Here's how you draw. One of the rules is think in terms of, I could make it more complicated or less. So I'm going to make this as uncomplicated as possible. In other words, if I was going to tell you the simplest single principle, it would be balance curves against straight lines. Okay? And it's like a rule. Let's say it's a rule. You're not allowed to have a straight line against a straight line or a curve against a curve. If you were going to have one or the other, it would be a straight line against a straight line. Never a curve against a curve, like hardly ever. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. If his deltoid is a curve and his bicep is a curve, then make the back of his arm a straight line. If you make this a straight line, you can make this a curve. Okay? If this is a curve, okay, you know, we kind of got two curves, but they're going in the same direction. Okay? Curve, straight line. This is foreshortened. So because of that, well, I'm going to stick to my rule though. We could make that a straight line, or we could make it a curve. We could do it either way. But you want to have one balancing against the other. Okay? Does that make sense? Because now, if you were trying to make it realistic, it wouldn't be quite like that. You'd have a little bit more volume here. You would actually have a tricep. Okay, so if I was going to draw this realistically, what would I do? Well, I'm kind of aware of the anatomy. So deltoid, a little bit of a tricep action. This shows where I come from. Like I said, John Buscema was who I liked when I was in high school. He drew Conan comic book. Okay, so right, so this is Mr. Big Muscle Arm guy, right? Okay. So it isn't all straight lines against curves. Someone I saw somewhere in a YouTube video said that everything's either a straight line or a C or an S. And that's pretty true, but I don't know how helpful that is because it's hard to relate it to the underlying structure. Yeah, well, see, the Oscar, yes, in anime, everything is by definition simplified. Okay? So I actually get myself in, if I draw a face, okay, this is the problem I'm going to have doing an anime. Let's stick with the Conan example since I'm given that as an example here. Okay, so we'll use the old John Buscema Conan kind of thing as a example of what I'm talking about. And his chin's not quite right. Okay, so if I start drawing in the way that comes naturally to me, and by the way, I made his eyes a little too big. So we'll do it like that. Okay, if I draw in the way that comes naturally to me, it's going to look all wrong for an anime. Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay, so and of course, drawing from life is definitely a good exercise. I don't think it's the thing about drawing from life. I don't want to say that somebody can't like just be a cartoonist, because I think you can. And I don't think doing a ton of life drawing is that important for a cartooning style. But it is difficult to understand motion. And animation, it gets a little tougher if you don't do some drawing from life, so that you begin to think around. And that's one thing John Buscema said. He said, draw through the subject. Okay? So, of course, we're drawing Conan. So, now if we're going to draw Conan in an anime style, we got to make everything way simpler. Okay? So, he's going to probably have a more squared jaw, and you know, he's going to have hair like this probably, and maybe the eyes are going to be a little bit elongated because everything's all about Japan, right? And he still might have some shadows under here, and he might have a shadow under there, and then maybe we put his mouth lower. I mean, this isn't the greatest example ever, but you get the idea. I mean, you've got to be cognizant of what you're creating your art for. So that's sort of getting into the Samurai Jack territory. Now, Samurai Jack is extremely simplified, but it works. You know, for that style of show, it works. I found after about half a dozen episodes of Samurai Jack, I got kind of bored of it, because I felt like their formula, it was so formulaic that they just were repeating themselves all the time. So now this hair for Conan doesn't quite work. You know, something more like that. So you can see what I mean. So going back to answer the question that was asked is, how do you draw? I would stick with map things out with sticks and balls. And then be aware of where the joints are. So if this has sticks and balls, remember that that's on the center, right? So then you've got a deltoid. You've got certain masses that you know are going to be necessary. But the basic rule is, like my wonderfully muscly arm here, is that when it closes, it goes rounder. Okay? So same thing with legs. If I'm going to draw these legs, they can be very exaggerated. Let me make them just stupidly exaggerated, okay? And I'll zoom out here in a minute. Okay? So I'm going to draw these really crazy exaggerated legs. All right? If I go straight line here, curve here, and then let's do the opposite here. Okay, for a cartoon, that actually works. Now that doesn't really look quite like anime. It reminds me of something I might see on Cartoon Network, like Johnny Test, or I don't know, that kind of stuff. But see, I could have done it the opposite. I could have said, well, let's give this guy a big muscly thigh, but if you're going to do that, then let's make that line straight. That probably looks a little more realistic. Here, if we're going to make it a rule, then it would be like that. The point is, it works either way. So if you want to learn how to draw cartoons in the most efficient manner possible, in a way that seems to have a very simple formula that you can extrapolate that formula out into a lot of different styles, here's the book I recommend you get. I'm gonna just give me half a second. Okay. This is the book I would get, and other people will have a different opinion, but this is my opinion. Ben Caldwell, Action Cartooning. There's basically two books, Action Cartooning and Fantasy Cartooning. Okay? And by the way, has OBS not failed since I put it on its own CPUs? I don't think it has. I don't think it's blanked out. There's other books for, if you want to talk about perspective and stuff like that, there's other stuff you could get. But this is, Ben Caldwell's two books are just really a good, well-rounded concept of how to draw. Let's see what they have here for images. I want to see if I can find, yeah, this definitely looks, it's very much like, who's the guy, somebody out there knows, who's the guy that's like into character design and he teaches courses? It's Steven something. Okay, that's not Ben Caldwell. I'm trying to find, Let's look at, let's find his website. He's got this thing called Dare Detectives. Let's go Ben Caldwell cartoonist and just see. Action cartooning. Yeah, action cartooning. Ben Caldwell on Tumblr. For some reason, this guy he does a good job of keeping a low profile. Is that Ben Caldwell? He's 45 years old. Is that the guy? It doesn't seem like that'd be the guy. But anyway, okay. Action cartooning or fantasy cartooning by Ben Caldwell would be a good place to start. And he's definitely operating in this kind of a style that I'm showing here. So, okay, cool, good. I'm saying good about OBS. I need to remember to put it on its own. Okay, so let me ask you guys this. Obviously, we've only got 4 people watching, so it's definitely a stilted poll. But if you guys are wanting to see more of this kind of stuff, I'm cool with that. I would like to do more of this stuff. Because when I did the video the other day where I took Blender 2.8 and I drew All Might from My Hero Academia, that video got more views in one day than most of my videos get in a week. And it still wasn't a ton, but it was notable that it got a lot more views. So I'm like, okay, if that's what people want to see, it was fun for me. You know, I like doing it, so what the heck. I've been streaming for over an hour, by the way. Okay, so now I'm going to get back to work. And I hope that was helpful. Per Almerd, who I'm probably saying your name wrong, so sorry about that. Alright, let's keep moving. We need to go to the Ninja 2 layer. Yeah, because I need to keep rocking here and get this thing done. Okay, actually I need to not select all. Sorry. That is a, I call that a bug, but maybe other people don't think it's a bug. Let's see what happens here. Okay. Ah, not too bad. Okay. Okay, so we just want to keep the whole hair thing consistent from frame to frame. So for that reason, I'm being a little bit floofy here with the hands and that. So this one we'll just erase and redraw. No big deal. Okay, for me, I like to see your progress. Most people like tutorials and fan art. My read on it, Oscar, is the same as yours. I think that there's, in fact, I was just talking to Valerie about this. I think that's true. The people who are going to enjoy this, which is very long-winded, very slow, versus some people that are going to like something like my drawing of All Might, I think they're probably 2 different kinds of people, to an extent. But they're all important, of course. And I am interested in... If it's fun for me, then I have no problem giving people what they want to see. You know, if this is what you're interested in, and this is what you want to learn or whatever. Because when I started this channel, I mean, I had the channel for a long time, but when I started doing the anime thing, there were basically 2 reasons to do it. One is to take the risk of failing publicly. I thought that would be a good thing for me to do. I wanted to do. And number 2, I wanted to create content that was what I would want to see myself. Because I was looking for something like this where I can look over the artist's shoulder and not only that, but because there is some of that. There's a reasonable amount of that. But as far as anybody creating a credible anime live in real time on YouTube, I can't find it. I'd love to find it. I'd be so cool, man, but I can't find it. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. Somebody needs to create this content. And that would be, as Professor Farnsworth would say, "Good news, everyone." If you don't know what that's from, how's this? How we do Zoidberg? I can do it right now. That's funny. Okay, so there's a story behind that. In the animation realm, one of the things we thought about doing, and we still might do, is a fan Futurama episode. Okay? Because I can do all the voices. And, I mean, I've been voice acting for years, you know. And, so I actually wrote a script that's about half written of an episode of Futurama, and I thought that was actually one of the things that got me into doing the animation. Was we were really seriously considering, let's just do a fan episode and see if it grabs, because if it grabs, who knows, maybe Groening and his cronies would be interested in farming some of this stuff out and see some new episodes happening, right? You know, you may disagree, but I enjoyed Futurama much more than The Simpsons, you know, as far as Matt Groening's work. The new one that he's got on Netflix, if you didn't know, you probably want to know that if you're a fan, that Matt Groening does have a show now on Netflix called, I think it's called Disenchanted. It's basically a fantasy format, just like Futurama was, you know, future sci-fi. Simpsons was slice of life. Okay, this one's like fantasy kind of thing. Fairy tale, I suppose. I haven't watched it, but my son was watching it, and the most notable thing was that the whole time he watched it, I never heard him laugh out loud one time. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is, I'm not totally thinking I did the greatest job here. So what I'm going to do is, this is all going by somewhat quickly. So I always reserve the right to sort of get away with murder when it comes to, shoot, I hate that little bug there. Getting away with murder when it comes to getting all the details exactly perfect. But we want to be very cognizant of having maybe reached the place where it's important to be a little more exacting. Let us say. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to hit the G key and scooch this over, and then I'm actually going to have to do some erasing here. Whoops. Better get your hotkeys right there, Junior. Get your hotkeys right. A quick rub with the smoothing tool. Cool is the writing, and if a show's not working, it's normally because the writing hasn't found its way yet. Okay, and let's go ahead and put this headband on him. Okay, that's not convincing, is it? That looks stupid. And like I said, sometimes we get away with not being too exacting, but we don't want to be stupid either, do we? No, we don't want to be stupid. So, okay, so that's not horrible. Yeah. Okay, so you can see the distortion there in his face. That looks pretty bad. But to be fair, okay, to be fair, if you watch any show, like we're talking about Futurama, well, if you watch closely, Futurama has plenty of moments like this one. Okay, let's be honest. The animation and the, you know, everything is not always impeccable. That's for sure. Okay, cool. So he's getting ready to go into it. Okay, so now, actually what's missing here is we got to put this in, and then Okay, so now one question is, did he have a let's see, what am I trying to say? Did he have a wrap on his arm like the other guy did? I don't remember. Nope, he does not have a wrap on his arm. So, okay, so cool. We can leave that as is then. Okay. There it is. Okay, so now he's going to really fall into it. And I guess I want to keep this stuff. So let's hit Control C, and then let's hit the D key to draw a keyframe, and then Control V, come on, Control V to put that hand back in. Now this one I want to rotate a bit, like videos where I draw some popular character or whatever, because frankly, I would enjoy watching it too if it was somebody else doing it. And I don't go back and watch my own videos, but when I do, I actually do find them kind of entertaining, which surprised me. I figured I'd think, okay, this is stupid or whatever, but it actually was. Let's do it this way. Let's go ahead and give him a pained expression. If my microphone just pee-popped, I apologize, because I could definitely believe it would have. Okay, so now this has got to go there. There's his arm. So therefore, we got to have a little bit of a thing where he's got those neck wraps going on. So that would be black. And frankly, I probably should just draw the edge of the floor. Yeah, okay. So now the question now becomes, can we kludge this to kind of sort of leverage the drawing? It looks like we can to an extent. Yeah, that's not bad actually. That's surprising. I'm going to have to redo his head, but cool. Cool, cool, cool. Alright, so draw. Let's get rid of all this. As you can see, what's actually going on here. Okay, it's hard to draw something from a completely alien angle. I think that's going to work. You know, as usual, we want to be cognizant of the fact that this is going to go all by us in 1/24th of a second. And that's again why sticks and balls are so important, is if you get the sticks and balls right, cool. So there's more in anime that's kind of about the drawing, you know, because they don't actually move that much a lot of times. Okay, so like I said, this is going to go by pretty fast. Let's add just a little bit of detail here and see if this is going to work. Okay, so I'm pretty sure what's really strange, actually, I'm looking at the timing on this thing. Okay, actually we want that on. We want these three off. Well, no, we want the background on. I'm going to roll this back to the top and see what it's doing from the camera point of view. Now remember, when this starts, guys, I don't know why it's doing that, and I really need to take the time to look into it, but reconnection successful. Alright. So here he comes. Okay. So now the question is, boom, that goes by pretty fast. What we have here is, yeah, basically one frame or two, and then his arm swings out. So, alright, so we would hide this if you want to see what that looks like. So when it cuts to the other angle, he's going to hit the table, boom, right there, and then the table's going to move, and we need the other layers on in order to see the table moving. So there the table gets moved, And so the vase that's spinning is, it's not going to be spinning until right here. Then it's going to start spinning. And then we'll get this going on, and then it cuts to this other angle. And then ninja number one, of course, flies into action to go catch the vase and stop it from moving. Whew, what a relief. And then there's more story that goes on from there. So the thing that's bugging me at this point is the way this shot just stops. You could say, well, I need to be in edit points mode. You could argue that this pose where we're looking at the back of his head, it looks pretty stupid. But if it's only going to be on the screen for 1/24th of a second, then all that matters is that it makes sense from a motion standpoint as he flows into that pose. Sorry, I gotta ignore a phone call. Okay. So now the question becomes, what do we want to do with this extensive time? Let me see. Oscar's got an idea. I think the ninja spacing should change maybe by the time the second one is made up to the window. Ninja out of frame. Yeah, I had thought about that. That's one of the reasons why I put him on his own layer, is so that I could move. I could take this whole thing, parent it to an empty, and shift it over if I wanted to. So, not a big deal. To an extent, once we have a... Oh, here's the problem. There we go. We've got another keyframe that's missing. No wonder. Okay, cool. That's good. So I'm going to get busy drawing then. Okay, so... Obviously, if I do move it around, the fact that I'm drawing around Ninja 1 is going to cause these drawings to have to be amended. And so I acknowledge that and will tell you that the odds are I am not going to move it. But if the situation warrants it, I will. So he's going to be struggling right here, and there's his headband, and there's his headband, and there's his Naruto hair that we all love so much. It's just wonderful. And I actually think that pose is probably going to work. I think that's going to work. Alright, so now he's got to have his wraps. And anything else we're missing? I don't think so. Okay, that line was kind of stupid, but okay, and we need to close this up right here. I'm going to do it with drawing as opposed to sculpting. Okay, there's that. Very good. These little shapes need to be closed. That needs to be cleaned up. But basically, I think we're in good shape. Alright. Oh yeah, my mistake. We would not see his mouth. Don't be stupid, Dave. You got to remember what you're doing here. Right? Okay, I did the same thing there, which is kind of funny. Ah, shoot. Accidentally clicked the right mouse button. Control Z. Hello? What the heck? Okay. I need to spread this out so I can see. Yeah, see this? Oh, wait. I see. It's jumping to the keyframe from the other layer. That's kind of one of the things I object to. My opinion is that when... Oh, for crying out loud. Seriously, dudes? Like right there. That's what I'm talking about. To me, if you have a layer isolated, it should not be jumping to the keyframes from other layers. Or at least you should have the option to tell it not to. Man, that's obnoxious. Alright. So now, here we go. So as you can see, I adjusted the timing slightly between the ink layer. Yeah, okay. Okay, cool. So we've got another layer to draw. I'm gonna do a wiggle job so that we don't have to draw another frame. Okay. Now I am going to draw another frame, but I'm keeping a significant portion of it, so that's why I did it the way I did it. Okay. And this is actually the last frame before the before it switches, so I just want to look at his I'm kind of in the zone. I shut up when I'm in the zone. I know what you're thinking, folks. You're thinking, Dave, you need to get in the zone more often. I don't even think I need to draw the facial features there. Because that's going to be black, and it's largely in shadow as well. Oh, come on. Oh, I hate that. I hate with a passion the way it goes to keyframes from other layers. That's something I've been fussing about with Blender 2.7 for a long time. The entire 2.5 series. It's just so accident prone. I mean, you would think that would be a feature of the what would you call it? The dope sheet. Sorry. I'm so used to OpenTunes and the X sheet that I forget my terminology sometimes. Okay. There we go. Okay, and so here we want to insert a keyframe. I'm just going to go like that. Draw a dot. And I could erase it as well, but at least it puts that keyframe in there. I'm going to spread that out to 3s just to see what happens. Okay, let's turn that off. And by the way, I've been drawing in the camera view without thinking about it, so I want to make sure. Yep, it's screwed up. Darn it. Okay. That means that Ninja number 2, I need to I had to do the same thing yesterday. If you go into the camera view, click anywhere with your left mouse button, boom! The cursor has moved. And now everything you draw from now on is going to be literally physically in the wrong place. See, at this point it was fine. Fine. Let me just see. See that? Now I'm seeing the onion skin, obviously. But there's one line that's off. Now, it's not worth complaining too much about, because the fact that we have the ability to work with 2D stuff in 3D spaces is definitely very cool. So, alright, so now unfortunately I got to go through and re-project every single one of these frames. So that's right here, re-project planar. Next keyframe, select all, re-project planar, select all, re-project planar, select all. So what it's doing right now is wherever the cursor is, which I just moved it with a hotkey combination to the center of the 3D world. So now what should have happened is it's screwed up. Okay, so what that means is that when I re-projected, or when I moved the mouse, it didn't really move. It didn't really move. It just pretended to move. All right, let's try it this way. Let's go to the front. See, the problem with this is, yeah, there's the problem right there. You see what's going on? Screwed up. Why is it all screwed up? Because I was drawing from the camera view. All the strokes are placed in the wrong place, and from the camera view, it looks correct. So we have to reproject from the camera. Unfortunately, do we care? Now that I think about it, do we actually care? I think so, because the camera does another move. Well, the significant fact, I guess, is that it looks right from the camera's perspective. But, okay, so we're going to do a little experiment here. Like I said, if this is too boring, folks, I'm sorry. I have to do it, though. Got to deal with it. Okay, so what I'm going to do, again, is hit Control, Shift, Alt, minus. Now, I want to look and see what happened. Where's the cursor? Cursor. Hello, cursor. Oh, there it is. Is it at the center? Yes, it's at the center. Is Ninja 1 at the center? Yes, Ninja 1 is at the center. Therefore, if I reproject these strokes planar, it should put them, and it won't. It will not put him at 0 because he was drawn relative to the camera. So this is one of the great problems with doing drawing in Blender, is that if you make one mistake, accidentally click anywhere that moves the cursor, all your drawing's in the wrong place. And it would not be a big deal if it was in the wrong place and I had been drawing in the front view like this. That would be fine. It would still reproject to 0. Now what's happening is it looks right only from the standpoint of the camera, and when I reprojected it to the center, it did reproject it to the center. Here's the center, and if you draw a plane from the center straight through here from the camera point of view, which is perpendicular, boom, it's perfectly projected. What does that mean in the real world? It means I can't fix it. It means I have to live with the fact that it's out of whack. So screw it. I don't care. It's out of whack. It's going to stay out of whack. Okie doke. Yeah, that kind of stuff is like definitely pretty annoying. Okay. So now we're at the point where let me see. Let's unlock Ninja number 2's layer. And I think what we probably should do, yep, is right here. Okay, hold on. Let's turn on only render. Okay, he comes up, rolls in. Whoa! Okay, catch the vase. Okay, cool. All right. So I want to watch this one more time. I'm just going to let this roll around a couple times. Okay, yeah, in no question about it, when this thing gets edited, we're going to definitely want to, like, the minute he hits this pose, we're going to cut to the other shot. No doubt about it. So I think we should just do that now. Let's just do it now. We're going to unlock everything. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to box select everything and just move these keyframes all back here like that. So now, yep, there we go. And actually that kind of worked for us, because by changing the timing, that's cool. Alright, so now we're on frame, what frame are we on? We're on frame 121. I'm going to change this to dope sheet, and what I'm going to do is the vase, where's the vase? Okay, that's an empty lamp, master spin. Oh, yeah, this is one of the stupidities. Watch, look at that. To me, this is so stupid. Okay, J Parks. No. You mean draw on paper and then scan it in? No. Don't do it. Okay. In Blender, if you hide an object that's in your 3D space, it also gets deleted or hidden from the dope sheet, which is mind-numbingly dumb because isn't it conceivable that you'd want to change some keyframes? Most, notably the visibility, but of that object. Okay, anyway, back to Grease Pencil. I said we're switching points. Actually, I said we were on frame 122. Okay, is that correct? Where does he hit the table? Boom. He hits the table there. So that's 121. Okay, so let's just fix this right now. Go to the dope sheet, and we're going to go to 121. So we're going to grab this visibility key and drag it back to 121. So now, hits the table, and oh, there it starts going. And so I don't know if I'm going to try to render this in 2D, like with Freestyle or something, or if I'm going to, go ahead and, okay, I got to change that. Or if I'm going to trace it. I'm not sure which I'm going to do. So presumably, I would think right here, I'm guessing if we move these keyframes back to here, we're going to be in good shape. Yep, there we go. Cool. Okay, so now we can watch the whole thing. Let's watch the whole thing, folks. Because actually, it kind of bums me out that I have 8 watching now. I want to ask you, let me address a couple questions here. First, I saw you tried out Blender 2.8. Do you still use 2.7.9 because you started this? Answer is both. I tried loading this very scene in 2.8 today, as a matter of fact, and none of the grease pencil lines show up at all. I'm essentially having to start from scratch. So porting forward to 2.8 with this ink work, I didn't want to start it all over because I was already about half done. So, and I will say that I did not have Blender 2.8 was not like blowing up a lot. It didn't really seem as unstable maybe as in the past, although there were a couple things I did that caused it to just go poof and the whole app just disappeared. It was gone. So you want to definitely save early, save often. But okay, so where we're at is I'm just gonna scan through this. So we open on the Tibetan monastery, a couple birds fly through the scene. I wonder if this is still cached in memory. Not quite, so it's going to play back a little choppy. These birds flying through. Okay, so I'm just going to review the whole thing because we're just getting our bearings of where we're at this point. Give it 6 to 12 months. Yeah, exactly. Alright. So far I'm liking it. Most of this, as you guys, some of you know, was done in OpenTunes, not Blender. Although the original ink work was all done in Blender, but a lot of it had to get redrawn. Like there's a shot coming up here, I think that one as well, where I did it with the OpenTunes vectors and was surprisingly satisfied with working with the vectors in Open. This shot right here was all done in vectors in OpenTunes. Okay, so now she's aware that these guys are coming, and that's where it cuts to this. One of the nice things about Vegas, I'll show you guys, is I'll just grab a shot here. Okay, so this is an image sequence that was rendered out of OpenTunes. The cool thing is, if I wanted to change the timing on this, I could go right here, split this, go 1 frame forward, and whoops, click the wrong thing, and I want to make this a subclip, which turns that 1 frame into a clip, and then I can, essentially I've just created a hold on that frame, so it's like really fast and easy to retime things. Very similar to what you can do in the X sheet, you know, in OpenTunes. It's a little harder in Blender because Blender doesn't really have a, at least as far as I know, it doesn't really have a ripple effect. We don't have the ability to move this keyframe and have all the other keyframes move downstream. Maybe it does and I don't know it. I've just never happened to go down that road to figure that out. But so for me, this is looking pretty good. Remember, this is what you're actually going to see here is, you know, it's pretty dark. There's moonlight coming in. It's backlit. So it's not like all the details are going to be super easy to discern. And he comes in. I want to say right now that I'm not happy with that at all. I mean, it's not drawn that well. I'm kind of moving fast and probably talking too much. So that's probably got to be fixed. And there's a scale problem here. There obviously his hair's like way too big. Can we get away with that because it goes by really fast? Kind of, but not really. So I'm going to have to fix that. But anyway, so then his arm bumps the vase. And then it's go time to go catch it. And then the battle will ensue from there. So I think with that, even though I hate to bail out when I got 8 people watching, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Yeah, it's been almost 2 hours. And I got a few other things I need to get to. So anyway, thanks guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I've been doing videos almost every day, just documenting this whole process. So I expect that to continue. And if you happen to like stuff more like this video I did the other day, which was let's see. So the other day I did this video where I did a drawing of All Might. If you want to see more of that kind of stuff, you know, put something in the comments and let me know. So with that, I am going to sign off for now.